The physical release of my webcomic Unfamiliar is out in bookstores now. Check out the link below. Hey everybody, it's LavenderTowne. And today I'm continuing my series where I turn random stuff into cute character designs, and this is actually part 2 of my aesthetics video. You guys had so many other aesthetics and cores for me to try out, so I had to do a little part 2 with your guys' suggestions. First up, we're doing Y2K. Y2K is an aesthetic that I have personal beef with because I am technically a millennial, and so I had to see a lot of these fashion choices as they were happening. Now, I feel like a lot of like Zoomers and below think that Y2K aesthetics look like this, and sometimes they did, but they also looked like this and this and this. And don't even get me started on the sassy and sarcastic novelty shirts that were absolutely everywhere. This rabbit in particular really haunted me. You knew if a girl walked up to you wearing a shirt with this on it that you were about to be bullied. I just hated it. So I also wanted to include, of course, other parts of this aesthetic, like the bubbly sort of like retro future aesthetics to technology. This was a very interesting like adolescent era for things like cell phones and music players. Y2K era was when we were moving from like, a CD player between that to like an iPhone. There were all these weird little iterations like hit clips, which was like you had little cartridges that had tiny bits of music on them, and they were as small as like an iPod or whatever. And then you had all the iPods, the iPod Nanos. It was just an interesting time. Like it seemed like people were constantly iterating, trying to figure out what would be the end stage for technology in all these different categories. And also, the Y2K bug always comes to mind when I think about this aesthetic, which was actually this like borderline like apocalyptic fear that all of technology would stop working when it hit the year 2000 because of this bug where computers would not be able to handle that change. So that's something I also wanted to include and have this like glitchiness to this character. So I tried to sort of do a little blend between the glamorized concept of Y2K fashion and what I remember it of. To be fair, I was like in like early elementary school, so a lot of the trends and aesthetics I was aware of were, for kids, so maybe that's why I really associate it with a lot more of these like ugly, clashing, embarrassing kind of fits, but I can't help it. This is just how I see the aesthetic. The low-rise crop top combo was so prevalent and very popular, and I tried to sort of keep that in her silhouette as well. The goal was to be as skinny and blonde as possible at this time, and so, that's what I went with for her. And then, yeah, just this like horrible clashing colors all the time. A lot of neon green and pastel pink, a lot of like acid wash jeans and like butterfly clips and silly bands. All of those things really scream to me this like Y2K early 2000s kind of aesthetic. In order to incorporate more of that glitchiness, I gave her a little glitch in her eyes. Like I like the idea if she gets mad or whatever that her eyes like glitch out, just to do the Y2K glitch as well. And then I did a little like pixelation and chromatic aberration around her just to add to that even more. And also I feel like it speaks to this sort of like retro tech kind of vibe, like it's like degrading a little bit. Next up, I want to talk about kidcore. Now, this is an aesthetic, sort of a niche aesthetic that is associated a lot with decora, which is a really classic Harajuku style, where the goal is basically to pile on as many accessories as you can. It's all about excess and rainbows and brightness, and so a lot of people have taken decora and added on this extra little layer where it's really focused on nostalgia and everything that reminds you to being a kid. So I really wanted to go hard with this concept. Originally I wanted her whole character essentially to be drawn with like crayon, but I ended up wanting so badly to show all the little like accessories and stuff, so I decided to do regular line art for most of her, but then her face is like a little kid's scribble, and I think that that's so cute. I love the idea of like trying to animate her where she has like this very simplified face, but it's like moving really smoothly or whatever, and she emotes a lot like that. I just really like the idea of having this like floating sort of little scribble face. I think it's so cute. And then I kept in a lot of those like decora elements that are at the core of what kidcore is. The little decorative bandages. I added in a lot of nostalgic elements like the Tamagotchi around her wrist, and I gave her a little like short frock kind of thing that I wanted to look like one of those like play mats, you know, where there's like a little road and grass and little like houses and stuff. I just thought that was really cute and really spoke to like kidcore and the whole concept. Now the idea is usually to have like, yeah, a lot of accessories and like little toys as accessories. I feel like that's a huge part of kidcore. And I gave her these cute little shorts underneath, just so that it looks like she could run around and play and be really like active, and not, you know, have to worry. And of course the buns with the little braids and lots of little barrettes in them. I think it's such a cute style. I tried to give her little Playmobil heads as her earrings, and I also wanted her to have earrings and stuff. Like the whole concept is not that you are a kid, but like it's kind of like expressing what your kid self, if you had full range of, you know, if you had a budget and you could style yourself however you wanted, you're kind of like giving that to your past self. I feel like that's what kidcore is all about. Next up we have goblincore. This is another like offshoot niche. I think it started kind of with cottagecore, which we will be talking about later. But what goblincore is all about is sort of appreciating the grungier side of like these nature aesthetics, like appreciating, instead of just like songbirds and rabbits, you're appreciating like frogs and toads and rats. And goblincore is also about sort of like hoarding and maximalism, appreciating things like old silverware and random little bits and bobs that you might find at the bottom of like a Goodwill shelf as treasure. And really the whole thing is all about sort of embracing this chaotic, cluttered, like almost like a hoard of objects kind of thing. And in fashion, I feel like it often manifests itself as like having a lot of like little mismatched rings and really like big comfy layers of like sweaters and stuff. I feel like goblincore almost has like an over the garden wall kind of vibe, and it has this sort of like feral child lost in the forest kind of energy that I find really enjoyable and very cute. This is definitely not a super common aesthetic. I feel like not a lot of people would consider this like their main aesthetic, but for the people who do resonate with it, I feel like they hold this very close to their heart, because it's one of those rare aesthetics where like kind of the point is for things to not be super perfect. It's, like I said, very chaotic and very self-indulgent. There's almost a childlikeness to it as well, in the way that like kidcore is more of like the concept of like things that are fun as a kid. I feel like goblincore really speaks to what it's like to actually be a kid, you know, like running around in like ponds and trying to catch salamanders and stuff. That gives it this childlike whimsy, at least to me. And a lot of the time these aesthetics really come with like these mossy green colors and these browns and sort of like umber colors. So I tried to include that in my little character. I just really wanted them to look like an absolute creature, just sort of prowling around, collecting things and putting them in their bag. And I wanted to give them the faint resemblance of like a snail. So yeah, I think they turned out really cute. Last but not least is, of course, cottagecore. So many of you guys were like, where the hell is cottagecore, when I released my first aesthetics video, so here she is. Cottagecore is a really interesting aesthetic because I feel like it is so beloved by like lesbians and the LGBT community, and yet it does have you kind of dressing like an Amish girl. I think cottagecore is so cute. I love this aesthetic. But yeah, it's always a little sketchy when I try to dress like this, especially when I'm back visiting my family in Idaho, because I feel like if you're not careful, it can read as just like extremely conservative dress. The goal, I think, is to look like a little Ghibli girl going off on a picnic, and I think that the trick is to getting this aesthetic right in the way that you're like trying to come off is just being like super floaty and girly and fun with it. Cottagecore is, I think, a very like sweet kind of aesthetic. The goal is really to embody this lifestyle where you're not in a hurry, you're not like obsessed with technology, you're just like free and appreciating the world and that kind of thing. And I think it makes a lot of sense that this aesthetic is popular right now, because I think a lot of people are really sick of being inside all day, on screens all the time. Like, we're all finally like burning out of that. So I think that this like pastoral life that we have imagined sounds really appealing. Like everyone wants to do the little Stardew Valley thing, and go on picnics and make bread and all that kind of stuff. So cottagecore goes way beyond fashion. I think it really does show like an overall fatigue for modern life and a little pushback against that, because I think people are daydreaming about like living like living in an old school kind of like out in nature, meadow enjoyer kind of life. So that is the end. I did 4 more aesthetics. Let me know which one you guys like the best, and if you have any more suggestions, and I'll see you in the next one. Huge thank you to all of my patrons, including Aspen, Rayons, Vorpal Matt, Brandon Stark, Jammy, CB, Ted, Crosby F, Lucy Amajiki, Finn Must Die, Live, Salty Jackrabbit, Noose Milk, Raven's Crow, Zocelot, Teal Music, Jabber Dabber Doo, Gender Was Stolen, Kay, Kadaria, Deadly Nightshade Art, Astral Fox Art, The Expressive Poker Face, Tsubaki, Michael Lavally, Cutie Pie, Ruined Raincrow, Ice Cream Pal, Cola, JJ Jade, and of course, La Blah Blah Blah.